Hi, I'm Tova Brill, and today we're going to make challah. Baking challah is one of the 3 mitzvahs specifically designated for the Jewish woman in the Torah. The other 2 are lighting Sabbath candles and the laws of family purity, which include mikveh. A lot of women tell me they don't have time to bake challah. It does take some time, but with a little planning, you can make it work for you. Once you get those challahs baking, the aroma permeates the house. People come running into the kitchen to see what's going on, and it sets the stage for a great Shabbos. The challahs that we bake today are not going to look like bakery challahs. They look like homemade challahs. But the truth is, when I put both the homemade challah out and I put a store-bought challah, my challah is always the first to go, and yours will be too. This is what a finished product will look like. Here are the ingredients we're going to use. So let's get to work. There are 7 ingredients that you need to make challah, and each one represents a day of the week. First, you're going to have yeast. You need 9 teaspoons of yeast. So here's our yeast, 9 teaspoons. 4 cups of water, lukewarm. If it's too hot, it'll kill the yeast, and if it's too cold, it won't rise. 2 cups of sugar, a little more, a little less, depending on how sweet you want it, our sugar. And then you're going to just mix long enough until the sugar's kind of dissolved. Once it's dissolved, you're going to leave it about a half an hour to 45 minutes. And when you come back to it, it'll be all nice and bubbly. Then you're going to add 6 eggs. Make sure you check for the blood spots. Here are the eggs, 6 of them. Then 3/4 cups of oil. 3/4 cups of oil. And now we're going to start adding the flour. If you're making whole wheat challah, then you're going to need half and half. 8 cups of whole wheat flour and 8 cups of white flour. And that total is 16 cups, which turns out to be about 5 pounds. So here's the first 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're making white flour challah, then just use a whole 5 pounds of white flour. You don't have to measure. My family likes the whole wheat challah, so that's the one we make every week. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to start the mixer going. It's going to go for 8 minutes. When I make challah, I use an Electrolux mixer. It's a great piece of equipment. You can use it to make cakes, and it whips, and it does all sorts of things. It allows you to knead the challah dough while you're doing other things like talking on the phone or picking up something out of the refrigerator. At this point, I'm going to add the salt. 2 huge handfuls of salt. And then we're going to add 8 more cups of flour, for a total of 16 cups. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last 4 cups . 3, and there's the last. Now, this is going to mix automatically for 8 minutes. If you use your hands, it takes about 10 minutes. But it all turns out the same. The product is exactly the same whether you mix it by hand or you mix it by machine. If we were using our hands, we would just keep kneading the whole mixture until it was kneaded. Our hands would be like the dough hook. if you were kneading it yourself and it was this sticky, you'd want to add a little more flour because you need to be able to work with it. And you're going to work with it until it doesn't stick. See the consistency? It's much nicer. See how it doesn't stick? You see how it makes a nice ball? This is what you're looking for. We're going to cover the dough ball with some oil. Okay, regardless of whether it's in the mixer or not, eventually it gets into a big bowl because this bowl is way too small to make challah. When this rises, it's going to fill this whole bowl. We've taken the oil, we've covered the dough ball, and then we're going to spin it around until all the sides are covered with oil. You see how the oil is all around the sides? We're going to just keep rolling that ball around upside down and right side up until the whole bowl is oiled. And then we're going to flip it up. We're going to cover the challah, the big dough ball, with saran wrap. You could also use aluminum foil, but I found recently that saran wrap works very well. So we're going to cover it up so that no air gets through. And then we're going to put this saran wrap bowl in a warm place to rise. This is where the time frame comes in. Oftentimes I'll leave it until when I go to work, and that'll be like 8 hours. It'll sit and rise. But ideally, it would take about 4 hours in a warm place. But you can watch. It may take less, it may take more, depending on the day. The idea is you want this whole bowl to be filled, doubled in size. So let me put it in a warm place and we'll come back to it. Ideally, you've let your challah rise so it doubles in size. As you can see, this one's more than doubled. I let this rise overnight, which is quite a lot of time. And as you can see, it more than doubled in size. In fact, it's over the edge. This is when you're punching down the challah. If you'd only been rising it for an hour and a half, you'd have to punch it down and let it rise a little bit more. In this case, you can see it really doesn't need to rise again. And here's where the mitzvah of challah actually comes in. We're going to take a handful of challah, about this much, and we're going to make the blessing. And we're going to have in mind all the people who need a full and speedy recovery, or maybe something that we're going to ask from Hashem, like a child to get married, or parnasa, a livelihood. So I'm going to make the blessing, and I'm going to have in mind all those things. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvaso v'tzivanu lahafrish challah. Harei zahala. This piece of challah dough I'll put in my freezer, and at Passover time we'll burn it. And that's the mitzvah of challah. Now we're going to shape the challahs. You take a piece of challah, you take a piece of dough about this size. We're going to make them into 4 snakes. You can make challah braids from 3 braids, 4 braids, or 6 braids. The easiest for me is 4 braids. When you have the snake about this size, you're going to roll it in flour. And the reason you roll it in the flour is because you want to keep the shape after this has started to bake. So there's one of our snakes. And here's going to be the second. So on and so on. And we're going to keep making these braids until we have, in this case, 4. With 4 braids, you'll end up with 6 nice size challas. And here's our last snake. We're going to dip it in the flour. And now we're ready to braid them. You put them side by side. Okay, and you're just going to braid it like you would braid hair. On the ends, you're just going to snap them together. You're going to snap them together. You're going to turn the ends under, and then you're going to fit them into a baking pan with a piece of parchment paper. You don't need to have the parchment paper, but it works a lot better than if you oil the pans. This is what it looks like, and you'll put it to the side until you have 6. These challas are going to sit and rise until they're double in size. That could be any time from a half an hour to an hour. Now we're going to make the egg wash. First we're going to crack 2 eggs, checking them for blood spots. We're going to add about a tablespoon of honey. And a tablespoon of oil. This is what the challah should look like when you're ready to paint it with the egg glaze. You want to get into all the cracks. Now we're going to add the sesame seeds. By Jewish law, bread has to be baked in an oven that's neither meat nor milk. That's considered parve. So if you have a perfectly clean oven, that's okay. I use an oven that's portable for just this purpose, and I keep it just for challahs. It's big enough for 3 challahs. You can find these ovens in Borough Park. The nice thing about a convection oven is it doesn't need to preheat. So we're going to pop these challahs in the oven. Now I'm going to turn the temperature to 250. And we're going to time it for 10 minutes. Then we're going to raise the temperature to 350 for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes of that, we're going to turn them around in the oven and finally bake them for 8 minutes at 450. You'll see by increasing the temperature slowly that you'll get a nice rise in the challah without having any breaks in the challah. Watch, you'll see. I'm going to now put these on a cooling rack so that the bottoms stay dry. If you don't count the amount of time it takes for the challahs to rise, it's only about 45 minutes of actual work. And here's the finished product.